Hi, Neville. We have the pleasure of welcoming you to our interview series. I'm Drishti Shah here from the Engati team. Engati is the world's most leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, which is available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created and deployed across 186 countries in every domain and use case. We run the Engati blog and the video channel, which receives up to 300,000 visitors annually and have published two interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now our guest here, Neville, is the CEO of MindFit Limited and a firm believer that a can-do attitude is essential to achieving personal and business success. He brings a proven record of optimizing financial and commercial outcomes through a combination of original thinking, pragmatism, and a determination to get results. He's also co-authored the book, Can You Handle the Truth?, which aims to help CEOs not only see the light at the end of the tunnel, but also gives the roadmap to achieve it. Hi, welcome, Neville. We are thrilled to have you here.
Drishti, very good morning to you, or good afternoon where you are, as we're using the international medium of digital connectivity. So good afternoon to you, good afternoon to everybody else, and let's have some fun. Let's have some reality. Can you handle the truth?
Yes.
Well, let's see. Okay.
So I'll just start with some questions and
sure.
Be waiting for your answers. Okay. So starting with the motto that you have, if you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. So does this have a personal significance that you would like to share with us?
It does, but let me ask you a very simple question. Where do you think that motto comes from? Do you know?
I think it is a quote from Henry Ford.
You're absolutely right. And is Henry Ford still alive?
No.
No, he died quite a few years ago. So this is an old quote. In fact, it's a very old quote from almost 100 years ago. You know, That's how old the quote is. I came across this quote when my background is fundamentally in the business sector. I've lived most of my life, having graduated from university, in the corporate world. So I'm predominantly in oil and gas. Now, although I specialised in oil and gas is a huge supply chain. So wherever we work in the world, we utilise local labour. So we know about the supply chains. So I was very fortunate to have had quite a bit of experience in small businesses, startups, and large businesses that recruit, guess what, graduates, because we need specialists. So if you think you can or you think you can't, first came to me in the mid-90s when I was put on lots of leadership courses. One thing the oil industry is good at is putting you on the best course that's out there. Why? Because they want the best people. That's not surprising, is it? So I came across a guy called John Adams, and he said lots of things in this week-long program, but this one early on in the week really did hit home, because I knew from my scouting years, because I didn't just fall into leadership when I started working. I spent nearly 20 years in Cub Scouts and Scouts, that if you had the right attitude, anything was possible. And if you had the wrong attitude, nothing was possible. So get the right attitude now. And as you see, it is so important to what we do as an organisation, not just within MindFit, but as in your passport to grow, aimed at students and young graduates and entrepreneurs, that this word attitude, which is right at the very top here, is so, so important. It underpins everything we do. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes. And I see that you have crafted the logo that way. So I really like that idea.
Well, it looks a bit like an A, doesn't it? So with a little bit of, again, having the right attitude is being creative. One thing that young people have got is a creative mind. If you've
Yeah.
kept it throughout your school, university career, brilliant, because that creative mind will allow you to be innovative. Well, even if you don't become an entrepreneur, it's a core ingredient to be enterprising, to be of value to the business, to come up with that. Oh, hang on, I've got an idea. Again, this is not rocket science. Okay, this is common sense stuff. Make sense?
Yes, yes,
Good. I can
definitely.
see you nodding and smiling. So hopefully a little bit is resonating with you.
Yeah, yeah. It
Good.
is actually insight to see it that way. Yeah.
And it works. Trust me. I guarantee it works. Not many people can give you a guarantee in life. You've got a degree, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
But that didn't guarantee you anything, did it?
Yeah, well,
It doesn't
it can.
guarantee you a job.
Yeah, it does not. Yeah.
No, but I'm giving you a guarantee. Hopefully by the end of this conversation, you might just believe it. But anyway, over to you.
Yeah. Okay. So, thank you so much for that. And next would be, like you said, that young minds are much more creative. But do you think that the youth today is impatient and quick to make these decisions? And what do you think has changed?
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? Do I think I'm going to answer the question, okay? Because you formulated the question. I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to give you the answer I want to give you. Do I think the youth of today are much more impatient? Okay, the answer is hell no. You know, I was so impatient, so thirsty for knowledge and information when I was young. And I've seen my kids be the same, and I've seen other kids be the same. I've got quite a lot of experience in schools as a school governor, a parent governor, and a school advisor. So, are children impatient? No, they're no more impatient than I was. When I was 3 years old and we went on a family vacation, by the end of the street, I'd say, "Are we there yet? What have we got to eat? What have we got to eat for lunch? When are we drinking? When am I having this?" So was I impatient? Yeah, of course I was. Did my parents keep my curiosity moving? I happen to think they did. They weren't the wealthiest people in the world. I come from a very humble background, what you might call it a working class background. And things were hard. I had 3 brothers. We all went to a very good school, got a very good education. Were we all hungry? Yes, we were. Were we all impatient? Yes, we were. Did we ask our teachers difficult questions? Oh, yes, we did. Now, do the youth today do that? I believe they do. And in some respects, it's more accelerated because there's more and more opportunity to be impatient, to expect results. If you don't know the answer, what do? You Google it. And if you put a question into Google, I can get, again, a guarantee. Here's another guarantee. In half a second, 40, 50, 100 million answers come back at you.
Yes,
But
that's true.
But the problem we've got today is, which one has got your name on it? Which is the answer that is the fact? Which is the truth? What's fake news? And this is where I think young people today are put under immense pressure because they can handle the truth. But if they're listening to the wrong person, are they hearing the truth?
Yeah.
No, that is a real struggle, especially in this digital age. And now, so does that make sense?
Yes.
And Engati is exactly that arena. What you're trying to do is to get people like me that have had an experience of life. I'm going to let you into a secret now. I'm a qualified accountant, so I'm boring. Okay? I don't normally go into that conversation until much later on. In fact, I never get there. But most people think accountants are boring. They go to accounting conventions. You don't get people going to accounting conventions unless they're accountants. Okay? All right? But life doesn't have to be boring. So are young people now quicker to make decisions? Well, hopefully, yes. But the question is, are they making the right decisions? So I have a phrase that we use all the time. Any practice makes permanent. The right practice makes perfect. It's simple, isn't it? You know. Yeah. And are you a musician? Do you play any instrument?
No, I
don't. Have you ever played an instrument?
Yeah, well, I have tried guitar, but I'm not perfect. Yeah.
But the point is, the practice was all there. You know, you could Google it, you could watch other people, but unless you get this working together, it can sound like the cat is screaming, or the dog is howling, or it can sound like a musician.
Yes.
So just a very simple example. You know, and all of the listeners here know, that any practice makes permanent, but it's the right practice that makes perfect. And what you're doing here, I trust and I hope and I believe, is that you're giving people the opportunity to do the right thing as opposed to do any old thing anyone's saying. We can all follow shiny objects.
Yeah.
And what that means is it the shiny object with your name on it? So again, this is very simple stuff. It is incredibly complex in psychology, neuroscience, and even years and years of thought process. But someone of my age that's lived through life and realised it at a fairly late age, 2/3 of my way through, I fumbled into this. I knew this, but I fumbled into this. And this actually is a guarantee. If you've got a can-do attitude, you'll succeed. If you're a won't do or a can't do, work on the can do first. Don't bother doing anything else. So you can make quick decisions. I want you to make quick decisions. That's the whole purpose of it, because once you've made a decision, get on with it, you can find out whether it was right. People, Pete, have you heard of fail fast?
I'm sorry?
Have you heard of the term fail fast?
Fail fast. Yeah, I mean, it's a general term. Yeah.
It's a general term. And the thing is, if you keep doing things and making decisions, the quicker you fail, the faster you learn.
No, yes.
Well, my view is if you've got the right attitude, you won't fail. Because it'll be everything you do, you'll either learn to do it better or it will succeed immediately. So there's no negative thought of failing. You know, you're either learning or succeeding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I see you smiling. So, you know, you're thinking. Hopefully everyone else is thinking too.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, but okay.
Good stuff.
So, so what I would like to ask here is that fast decision making is okay, but do you think that the working style of the older generation which is like very different. So, and the youth that are working today, it is working in a very different style. So how do you think organizations can work towards, bridging that gap and having a more collaborative way of working?
Well, I'm going to go back to this word attitude again, because if you think there's a gap, you will narrow your mindset to closing the gap.
Yes.
If you say, what's the issue, rather than saying there's a gap. So if you open your mind to more creative thinking of saying, what's the issue we've got here?
Yeah.
And not presupposing or pre-planning that it's a gender gap. Because frankly, as far as I'm concerned, we're having a great conversation here.
Yeah.
I'm one of those old people you're referring to. Do you feel as though there's any gap in our knowledge and understanding?
Not really.
Exactly. So by talking and discussing what are the issues, how can we make this better, and not focusing on, we've got a gender gap, we need to have this committee full of the right people, they need to be young and old and pink and blue and black and white and male and female and poor backgrounds and rich backgrounds and middle class backgrounds. We spend all of our time trying to be politically correct, when actually we just need to say, let's get everyone around a table. Who wants to contribute? Let's find out what's going on here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And believe it or not, the really good companies in this world, and trust me, there aren't that many, all right, not big ones, but the really good companies in this world do that all the time. Their managers in departments are coaches, they're mentors, they're friends, but they know how to keep the distance between being a friend and being a boss.
Yes.
And we're hung up. Part of the working style you talk about is that we're hung up with these labels. And once someone says, so if I say to you, are you a teacher? What would you say?
As in professionally?
You see, the question is you're asking yourself, what does he mean? Okay? So you've just adopted the right attitude. And the interesting thing is, no, I wasn't meaning professionally. So are you a teacher?
Yeah, well, I can share knowledge.
Okay. Can you explain the knowledge?
Yes.
Okay, so that's teaching.
Yes.
Can you explain it in a different way if someone doesn't understand it?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I can. Do you see that word you're using?
Yes.
I can. Yes, I can. And if that person really doesn't understand anything you're saying, do you keep trying to get them to understand?
Yes, I might try a lot of times.
A lot of times, of course, because that's human nature. Now, you've moved from teaching to coaching. So are you a coach?
Yes.
Of course you are. Are you a professional coach?
If this is the attitude, then yes, I am.
Have you got a coaching qualification?
No.
Well, neither have I. Joined the club. You see, so there is a huge gender gap between me and you. But do you see it? Is it being exposed here?
No.
No, because we're having a conversation.
Yes.
We can close that gap by having a conversation.
Yeah.
Not being confrontational, asking questions in the right way.
Yes.
Looking for the greater part of it, because 1 + 1 is always greater than 2. Now, I'm a mathematician, okay, so I can even prove that 1 + 1 is greater than 2.
I would really like to know that. If you can help me with that.
Well, when you have a conversation and the conversation goes up to the next level,
Yeah.
you're actually getting a better result.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Again, none of this is complicated, but not many people are doing it.
Yeah, you're right.
And it does create a healthy environment. Why? Because we've just proven it. You're smiling, I'm smiling. We're having fun. We're both learning.
Yeah.
If we weren't learning, we wouldn't be here. So again, it's down to your attitude and my attitude, and whether or not we're looking. This is why the power of purpose comes really close to success. So if your purpose, the reason you do things, okay, the reason I do things, if those two reasons are aligned and we have a conversation, we'll take it up here.
Yes.
If they're not aligned, it won't go anywhere. But it will go somewhere if we actually try to find the alignment first.
Yes.
And then we'll take it up there. Now, this is not rocket science and it's human nature, but we've lost it. Some people never had it, actually. They didn't. But the interesting thing is, let me give you a very simple example. You can almost remember when you were a baby. Yeah, you're trying to think, all right? But you're closer to being a baby than I was, okay? Or I am.
Yeah.
You may see babies around you at home, or with your friends. And all babies, unless there's a disability, right? But all babies learn to walk.
Yes.
How do they learn to walk?
They see others and try to mimic.
Correct. They see, they mimic. Okay, this is great. Keep going.
Yes. And then I try crawling and then, taking support of things and standing up and then start walking.
Okay.
That's
Now,
the adventure process. Yes.
when you do that, okay, do you do it in an isolated room with no one watching?
No, I think it's somebody taking care and somebody watching and also encouraging when a baby does something new.
Absolutely. We encourage it, don't we?
Yes.
So there's a 20-year, 30-year, 40-year. Grandparents might have a 60-year age gap. I mean, I haven't got any grandchildren yet, so I'm going to be well into my 60s by the time any of my kids give us a grandchild. I'm really looking forward to it. But there's a 60-year age gap.
Yes.
Do I turn around and say to that child that might be my grandchild, well, you've fallen over loads of times. Look, obviously walking's not for you. You're just going to bum shovel.
No.
No, I will say, come on, Drishti. That's great. Look what you're doing.
Yes.
Can you feel how good that you've got a smile on your face? Oh, don't worry, you've fallen over. That's not a problem. Let's get you up again. Come on, have another go, have another go, have another go.
Yes.
Okay? And we've closed that gender gap, so it's non-existent. So why do we think that there's a gender gap in the office?
I think sometimes what happens is ideologies do not match. And some people are more rigid to a hierarchy system following. And then people are, the younger people also feel like they should be recognized and heard for the creative ideas they can put in. So I think that is where the gap is there.
You're absolutely right, and a lot of the time the gap's there is because we're told there's a gap. You're a millennial, I'm a baby boomer. There's a gap. Again, we go back to labelling. You're not a coach, you're not a teacher, you're an interviewer. Okay. Yeah. But I am a coach, I am a teacher, I am a mentor, I am a friend, and by the way, I'm a learner too. So just by changing the title, changing the label, it blocks us from thinking. Mm-hmm. So if wherever I go, in any arena, people say there's a gender gap. So eventually I'm going to believe there's a gender gap, even if I don't think there is one. Because someone is out there with a hammer going, there's a gender gap, there's a gender gap, there's a gender gap, there's a gender gap. And eventually, unless I've got stainless steel holding it back, and these ears are just closed to the wrong information, bad information, fake news, I'm not going to be able to deflect it. I will eventually agree.
Yeah.
They call that the Stockholm Syndrome. So there's even a psychological term for it, You actually effectively start to believe in something that you never ever believed in.
Yes.
So is there a gap? Well, there must be, because everyone says it. No, there's no gap. Let's work it out. Let's find out what's going on here. And again, this is down to how people of my age address this and younger, and people of your age address it. And there's a great phrase in, we'll call it Selling 101, for want of a better term, or Business 101. From contact to contract is one letter, and it's the letter R. What do you think R stands for?
I'm not very sure.
No? Relationship.
Yes.
If I build a relationship, as we're building a relationship here,
yes,
we will move from having contact to having a contract. And that's why I say it's sales, selling 101 or business 101. And unfortunately, we're not educated how to build relationships. You didn't do a course at school on relationship building, did you? No, I didn't think so. Did you do a course on communication?
Not very like.
No. You did maths though, didn't you?
Yes.
And English.
Yes.
And a science.
Yes.
And a foreign language.
Yes.
But not on thinking or communication.
Yeah.
Or on attitude.
Yeah.
But how important would that have been had you done that course?
Very important.
Massively important, because it would have developed the right attitude. And the interesting thing is, as soon as you've got that right attitude, you become more employable if you want a job.
Yes.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, that is an absolute must.
Yes.
And an entrepreneur knows that contact to contract is now, for anyone that's listening here, is really understanding how their business will succeed.
Yes.
How to get you out of the me too, because there are millions of businesses in this world. What this lockdown, what this coronavirus has done is recognise that the only way forward is digital.
Yes.
From home working, from negotiations across the world, it's digital, just like we're doing here.
Yes.
So feel comfortable in who you are. Be who you are, because your face is not a business card. Your face is your calling card.
Yes.
And as someone once said to me, Neville, you've got a face for radio. And I said, thanks very much. We'll move on. You need to work that out. That was a joke. Yeah, I know. But anyway, so let's move on to your next question, because I think we probably exhausted that one.
No, really, no. It's good to hear it this way. It makes me think twice. I really like the contact and the contract one. I'll remember that definitely.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but do you think that, like you said, that you have developed this attitude of asking what the issue is? But do you think there should be a certain mindset of also the younger people who are becoming the leaders today?
Absolutely. It's almost like goes without saying. If I had one dream, like Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, if you can dream it, you can do it.
Yeah.
To dream it, you've got to believe it.
Yes.
Or maybe when you dream it, you then believe it, then you can do it.
Mm.
Frankly, the order doesn't make any difference. Okay, but if I had a dream for the future of education, I would create every school as a can-do academy.
Yes.
All of my teachers would have to be taught, have qualifications in being a coach, a mentor, an advisor, a counsellor, perhaps not official qualifications, but realise the importance of standing in front of a classroom and not just dictating, filling up empty vessels with knowledge, but encouraging, engaging, inspiring young people. Not to say don't look at the back because that's where the answer is, to not even think about looking at the back because they're driven by being inspired by that teacher. So if every teacher was a can-do, had a can-do attitude, and believe you me, they will all say they have one. I only need to ask them 2 or 3 questions to prove to themselves, actually, it's not as good as you think it is. It's good, but it could be better. Now, I've mentioned teaching here, okay? Can you think of the teachers that inspired you?
I would say my physical training teacher. They always, whenever we are doing exercising and we are not able to touch our toes, so they'll always say that, you can do it. Just try once, breathe in, breathe out, and you will do it. You'll definitely do it. So, yeah.
Oh, and you've picked on one that I haven't heard for a while, actually, because I ask this question a lot of young people. Because the key thing here is that teacher that inspired you took you to a place you never thought you could get to.
Yes.
It also formulated inside you that actually I like doing that. And the more you enjoy something, the more you actually get engaged and focused on it.
Yes.
And there is a bit of a paradox here. When you're really engaged in something, what happens to time?
It flies.
Exactly. And yet, the last thing we want to do is to have time flying because we don't have very long in this world.
Yes.
So it's a paradox. So here's a lesson for everybody that's listening. If you really want to have as long a time as possible on this earth, be bored.
It's true.
It's comical, isn't it? But that one, let's go back to that teacher. That one teacher excited you, inspired you, pushed you to a level you didn't think possible. What did that do for you?
Well, kind of developed an attitude that maybe I can be physically fit, more than I think, even if I'm doing it once a week. But yes, I can do it.
And the point is, right, I didn't prompt you there. Okay, I just asked you a question. Okay, and you mentioned attitude and can. How many times do people mention attitude and can? You'd be surprised how many times people do that. But how many times do people use the word can't? How many times do parents turn around to their children and say, you can't do that, we haven't got time? Or your teacher says, we can't do that, but we'll do it next week. Or come back to me after the class and we'll talk about it. And you never go because you heard the word can't. Or your boss, every time you take something to them to say, I've come up with an idea, and they say, oh, I can't deal with that now. And you go away. After 5 or 6 times, and this is if you're resilient, you won't bother. If you're not resilient, you won't bother the second time because you've been told, I can't, or you can't. You've heard that word can't. So this is an attitude that we need to eradicate. There are obviously times in the business world where you just haven't got the time to do things. Mm. You're so focused on something that someone comes up with a brand new idea that is going to throw you off course into a tangent. There is a very simple way of handling that. And the very simple thing is if someone comes to you, you know, one of your employees or one of your colleagues comes to you and say, oh, I've got a great idea. And you're really in that zone and you really don't want to be affected by someone else interrupting your thought process. You can, in a calm arena, turn to them and say, I'm sure it's a brilliant idea. I'm really caught up in what I'm doing at the moment, but I want to take on board what you're doing. Can we do that later today? What's a good time for you to talk about it? Now, I didn't use the word can't. The person that came to me didn't get the feeling of I'm being brushed off. You know, my value is being deminimized. I'm not valued. I'm not worthy. Again, this is about having the right attitude and the conversation skills, okay? Because this is another subject you didn't study at school, okay? How to communicate, but having the right conversation skills to be able to not deflect people, not let them down, but say, you're really important. I'm really busy here, you know? And next time they will think, the door's shut. I'm not going to interrupt. They're obviously very busy. I'll send them an email. Or when they come out for a coffee and they look as though they're smiling, I'll say, can I have a bit of your time later today? I've got an idea. That's how we close the gap. Okay? I mean, we use the phrase gaps all the time. You know, they exist. They exist they're not in people's imaginations. They actually believe they're really there. And all we say is they're not there. You know, it's a little bit like someone says, you need to think out the box. I say, what box? You know, you've just thought about your box. I don't have a box. Define your box for me, and then I can think outside it. You know, now you're smiling because it is comical, you know, but it's common sense.
Yes.
You know, don't wait until you're 61 years old to find out that common sense is really what we should be doing all the time. Does that make, you know, sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So another one, if someone says think out the box, you say what box?
Yes. That's a good one.
No?
Yeah.
Define what box you're in, and then I can help you get out of it. You know? Or at least jump into mine. You know? Yeah. And again, you can have a little bit of fun with this, you know, because it's not confrontational. Our problem with communication is, as a 2-year-old child, right? You stop a 2-year-old child asking the question, why? 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 It gets really annoying, you know. And I can remember as a parent, I would go like this, not another why, you know. It wasn't confrontational because they weren't challenging me personally. But as you get older, it becomes confrontational because when you ask the why, you're challenging beliefs, concepts, theories, everything that you've stood for all of your career. It's challenging your integrity. So this is why in every coaching manual in the world, it says never ask the question, why? And yet, 10 years ago, I think I saw Simon Sinek. Have you heard of that guy?
No.
Oh, Google him, Simon Sinek. And go on to YouTube, Simon Sinek, why? Okay. And the reason why, here you go, that's important, is everyone knows what they're doing. A few people know how they're doing it. In other words, they've got a process that works every time. And if it doesn't quite work, they tweak it a little bit. But most people don't know how they do it. They just do it. Like walking, tying a shoelace. Try and explain someone how to walk, how to tie a shoe. It's really difficult. Okay? But now the big $1 million question is, the majority of people on this world don't know why. They don't know why they're doing it. They have no plan of their career, of their life. And I'm not just talking about in business now, I'm talking about life. So get to the why. So the irony is all of these coaching manuals that are out there are now frantically thinking about, I better rewrite that because Simon Sinek is a really big celebrity. And he is, he's a great guy. Listen to him, a fantastic orator. And he's a practitioner, and he gets to that why. Because once you've got the why, the purpose. So why Engati? Why is your organization doing what you do? And then if you can explain that why to everybody, and everyone says, bang, that's got my fingerprint on it, I'm there. They will do everything they can to make the why happen.
Yes.
And if you look at the really good companies of the world, which happens to be some of the biggest companies like Apple and Google, if Apple or Google go on a recruitment program, they have millions of people. Why is that? Because they believe it's a great place to work. Steve Jobs knew the why. When he developed Apple into what it was yesterday, not today, because he died and there's a new leader, it was, we make great products. Now, if you're a manufacturer or a designer or an engineer, and that company says, we make great products, God, where do I sign? I can work with that. I can live with that. That's what I'm here for. I've done 3 years of a degree, 5 years of a master's, 4 years of a PhD, becoming a designer. Boy, I want to work for that company. You're inspired, you're energized, you're invigorated. But how much of that is going on? So a real simple message to all you young entrepreneurs out there, find your why. And if your why is to make money, may I humbly and respectfully suggest you've got it wrong. Because it's temporary. Your purpose, your why, needs to have longevity. And as a parent, as an entrepreneur, well, I was never an entrepreneur. I became an employee immediately from university. Probably a frustrated entrepreneur, as you might have gathered by now. But I became an employee, and then I became a parent. I didn't go to parent school. Dr. Zeus was out there, saying all these wonderful things. If you've fed a child and changed their nappy and you've burped them and they're crying, leave them to cry. And they still say that today, To me, that sounds madness, because you're treating that person as a homogenous commodity. Maybe that person just needs a little bit more love. Maybe they need the light on because they're a little bit insecure. Who knows? We don't know what a 2, 3, 4-month-old baby's thinking. But the method at the time was, if they're fed, cleaned and burped and a bit of love, put them to sleep. Because that's what all babies do. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. Anyway, I'm glad you're having fun because I'm having fun too. Let's get on to your next question. Otherwise, we're going to take up far too much time.
Yeah. So thank you on that wide question. That is really, really the need of the RS, I guess. So how do you think that everybody in the world is, driving for success, and there is a, lot of noise out there. So how do you think startups should use technology to make their a product heard or their marketing messages heard? How can they use and leverage tech for that?
Well, yeah, that is a brilliant question because we live in a digital world, and in the last 4 weeks of coronavirus, there have been, I would say, hundreds of thousands of apps that have suddenly been created. How to do this, how to do that, how to work at home. Even all the TV programs of the regular, we have one show which is on at 7:00 every night, and it gives anecdotal, good things that happen in the community. And over the last week, because we've been on lockdown for a week, we've been hit with, this is what this person does at home, this is how this person works, etc., etc., etc. So the noise has gone from this level to this level. You can't see how high it's gone, and it's the same the world over. So what is noise? So let's deal with the issue. Noise is because you're being distracted, which I'm afraid to say comes back to this word again, attitude. Because having a can-do attitude is being able to think appropriately and effectively. It's being in control of your emotions. So that means to be competent and resilient to what's going on out there. To be driven by a real sense of purpose. That's number 3. The why will drive us all. And to be socially connected. So not being isolated. You're an entrepreneur here. Leverage the technology. Okay. So the 4 things we talk about in being mind-fit or having a can-do attitude is how you think, how you feel, what you're driven by, the why, which is so big, and how you're socially connected, which is really important in this day. So 4 things. And if all of those 4 things are working together, you've got a can-do attitude. If any one of those 4 things is stopping you, let's say it's negative. So 4 positives make a big positive. 1 negative in the 4, and it doesn't matter which one it is, will create a negative in the other 4. And all of a sudden, it's like compound interest. It goes whoop, and it disappears completely. And then you've a can't do or a won't do attitude. The majority of people go into can't do. I can't do that. Well, what app is there? You know, there are so many apps. Which one do I take? That's a helpless can't do attitude. So to get out of that, you need to find the why and be really focused on why am I doing this? What are the best marketing tools that are out there? And again, this is not rocket science. If you're putting a marketing message out there, and let's face it, this is a marketing message. That's a marketing message. Even the materials we buy, that's a radiator. That's a marketing message. It's a statement. Not many people have radiators 2 meters high and a sort of charcoal grey. It's a statement, but I know what I'm looking for. I know my why. So the more you focus on your why, the more noise you will kick out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, you know from your own experience, what do you do to keep the noise down?
Well, try and concentrate somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So the whole point is concentrate and focus. This thing here, I've got something like 20,000 people on Twitter. That's just on my personal account. So if I leave my notifications on Twitter, just by that amount of followers and the people that are following me and the tweets that I put out, it will go ping, 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 ping. Ping, 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 ping. And then, okay, guess what? This is a phone. I've got people phoning me. And my voicemail goes, bong, 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 bong. And someone sends me an email and it goes, ting. So now I've created my own noise. I've created my own orchestra. Ping, ting, bong, bong, ting, bong, ting, bong, bong, bong. And immediately, just by using technology, I have created behavioural waste. Okay, so there's another term that your listeners can look up. You create your own behavioural waste by the actions you do. So there's a simple way to deal with all of these notifications. What do you think that is?
Well, like you mean how to avoid the noise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just mute my notifications.
Well, excuse me, that's rocket science, isn't it? Turn them off. It's comical, isn't it? Turn them off. Put them in a drawer. I'm busy. Turn them off. I'll get to them when I want to get to them. Sorry, I've made you laugh too much there. I don't apologise for making you laugh because we learn by laughing.
I'm having fun, yeah.
Well, that's the whole point, okay? So you're learning by having fun. Hopefully other people are learning it too. Turn the damn thing off, Look at the emails when you want to look at them. If someone really wanted to get in touch with you, they would get in touch with you. That's common sense, isn't it? If you've got family members that, my wife does it all the time. Her phone, she takes her phone to bed. Okay? Why? Hopefully she's not bored with me and she's got better things to do on the phone. But she takes her phone to bed because she allows the children access to ignore any precondition we've got. So if our children need to get in touch with us, you can set up certain things on your phone, any standard smartphone, iPhone, Android will do it. You can allow people to get through your, what do you call it? VPN. Okay? So you've got, it's your own, this is a VPN in itself, you know. You can either let people in or let people out, block them, etc., etc. So all the capability is on here. Use the capability. And the interesting thing is, if one of our children at 2 o'clock in the morning gets in touch with us, not only does she know the ringtone, but I know it. And even in the deepest sleep, we're awake because we know the why. And if one of our children phones us by mistake at 2 o'clock in the morning, I won't tell you what we say, but we're very polite until the following morning. But this is it. Take control. It's you mentioned how they make their marketing message heard. Well, it's their marketing message. Ask the simple questions. Are my consumers, are my clients, are my buyers on Twitter? And if the answer's no, why are you tweeting? You've created your own noise. Oh, you need to be in it to win it. You know, I need to buy a lottery ticket, otherwise it doesn't. But if your customers are not on Twitter and you've gone through that why, you know, then why are you on Twitter? If you think it's important, put out one tweet a day. But don't have the bing, bing, ping, 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 ping and just wait for people to respond because you've already said they're not on Twitter. So do the research, find out where your customers are, find out where your clients are, where your buyers are. If they're on Facebook, guess what? Facebook might be a good idea to do a lot of your marketing, mightn't it? Yeah. Again, a marketing message. Do you know who you're messaging? Have you defined who your audience is? Now, I can tell you the majority of companies in this world, in fact, 99.9%, are really lucky because they've got a very small market to go after. But the problem is they go after this one because they say, oh, just in case. Well, just in case shouldn't be in your vocabulary. You should know, what are we doing? Who are we doing for? Where are they? What message can I give them that's different from the thousands of others that are out there giving the same message? Right. Let me give you a very simple example. You mentioned MindFit at the beginning. I'm also chairman of a company which is a subsidiary called YP2G, Your Passport to Grow, which, interesting enough, is aimed at people like you. Go ahead. What do you say?
Neville, I'm sorry, I just lost you there in the between. Just give me a minute.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Without disturbance?
No.
I think I've lost you.
I'm still here.
Yeah. I can hear you like, yeah, okay. Now it's clear. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
You got it? You might need to do some editing then. Okay, so you mentioned at the beginning that I was CEO of MindFit. I'm also chairman of YP2G, which is exactly the same as MindFit. But our audience is very, very different. MindFit's audience is the chief execs, the C-suite, the senior management teams in large corporations. But what we have is a process that works every time. We guarantee it. So with all my work in education, as I said, I was a governor at schools and I've advised certain schools, been on their board. I could see that these soft skills that we talked about earlier, communication, how to think, how to listen, how to develop a can-do attitude, are really lacking. But there is a process that we use for the C-suite to help them get those soft skills back. In MindFit, we call it leadership. Now, leadership doesn't mean I make all the decisions. Leadership is I've got a team out there, I trust every member of that team, and the weakest link I'm going to help.
Yes.
That's leadership, you know? And when I'm not there, everyone does it anyway. They don't wait for me to turn up. That's leadership. So that's what we develop. And we develop that in C-suites by changing their attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And how we do that is we go to the why. So everything I've said to you is our process.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens to be reinforced by people like Simon Sinek and the greatest psychologists in the world and philosophers of past. If you think you can or you can't, you're right. Okay, so it goes back right to the very beginning. So we decided some time ago that, do you know what? We can help every young person in the world. More importantly, we don't have to do workshops. We don't have to physically be there. We can use the digital medium, just like we're doing here. And we can put all of our programs, not at this level, you know, the real hard hitting, Mr. Chief Exec, why are you doing that? Because I'm not nice when I talk to a chief exec. Because they don't have the time, you know. I'm polite, but I'm not necessarily nice. They may hate me, frankly, from the questions I ask them. Eventually they don't, but when I ask them initially, they do hate me because I'm now being confrontational. But frankly, you're a chief exec. You earn hundreds of £1,000s a year. You should be able to deal with that. And if you can't, I'll help you. So at least I've got that coaching capability that I can help them. But for young people, it's really simple. A 16-year-old listens to the teacher, does work in the class, goes home, does the homework, goes in the following day, the homework's marked, and you move on to the next lesson. So we develop YP2G in exactly the same way. We give you a little quiz, so we find out how you're thinking. We then ask you to go and do something, and then we say, what have you done? But we also say, tell us who you've done it to, and we'll ask them whether you've done it. So in HR, they called it 360. Now, the beauty of the digital arena is we can do that all online. And the other beautiful thing is it's 5 to 10 minutes a day. So over 90 days, over 3 months, you will go from here to here, guaranteed. So there's the classic. We've used the technology. We've got our marketing message. We know who we're addressing. It's a wide age group, but it's the same problem. Do you want the best job? Have you a can-do attitude? Have you got good skills? Not technical skills, the soft skills. And it annoys me, actually, just as an aside, that people call them soft skills because they're not soft. They are the hardest skills to learn. Because going back to when that baby started to walk, it wasn't easy. You fell over, didn't you?
Yeah.
You hurt yourself, didn't you?
Yes.
You probably cried, didn't you?
Yes.
But was it worth it?
Yeah, definitely.
So I got a yes, 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 yeah, definitely. That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is about marketing message. You know, if you're struggling with your marketing message, look what we do. You know, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. Please don't use Messenger to me because it annoys. Really, that is an annoying. That's a blocker, okay? Trust me, that's a blocker. But if you want to contact me, I'll help you, just a little bit of focus. But the point is, I'm not going to do it for you. Because if I do it for you, I'm your crutch. You will always come back to me. Just like that person that comes in and says, boss, I've got an idea. Oh, we can't do that, go away. You know, I don't really want to know your ideas because they're really specific to you. But let's find out what the blockers are in stopping you getting your marketing message. And the main thing is you just have to think, why are we doing it? What are we doing? And how are we doing it? And if it's not working, guess what? Stop. Stop. Don't keep doing it and say, oh, well, it'll work eventually because that's what this person said. You know, do it religiously for a period of time. But if it's not working, and only you will know what success looks like.
Yeah.
So if it's not working, then you need to take a step back and say, okay, well, I've learned my lesson here. I'm not going to listen to that person again. Or I'm doing something that they said, but I'm not doing it. So rather than saying they're wrong, actually go back and see what you've done that wasn't quite right and twist it, twist it and twist it. And eventually it will start to work for you. Does that make sense? And you don't need a marketing degree to do this. You might need a really good designer. You might need to understand how to make the most out of Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. But if you're going to do it, follow it through. You know, imagine you were a 12-year-old at school and the teacher says, you are not leaving this classroom until you can do simultaneous equations. Now, lots of people don't like maths. And when I mention simultaneous equations, they go. But I didn't mention calculus, which is even worse. But getting the marketing message over is simple. Have the right attitude, think, feelings, purpose, social connectivity, all those pluses working together, you're guaranteed to succeed. Any one negative, it starts the domino effect. That one will affect that one, will affect that one, will affect that one. And immediately you become a can't do or I won't do. Now you might say, or people might say, well, that's simple. That's far too simple. I'm a really complicated person. Yeah, we're all complicated. But we're built on simplicity. You apply the complexity, not me. So if you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right. That starts to come home. That's now having meaning, personal meaning to you.
Yes.
And by the way, they didn't say that yesterday or the beginning of the year or the beginning of the century. It's last century and it's about 100 years old.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
next, as they say.
I think on concluding this conversation, would you like to, leave the viewers with some specific messages or sound bites?
Well, we've mentioned a lot going through this. Some things have we've both been smiling and laughing. Hopefully, everyone else has been smiling and laughing. But I'm going to turn the table here. We've had a bit of time together. We've never spoken before. We had literally 2 minutes before this conversation. All of the communication that your company and I've had has been by someone else in your organisation. So why don't you sum it up? You know, and you might even want to say what you were expecting and what you've heard.
Okay.
But it's entirely up to you.
Okay. So this I was not expecting, definitely.
I told you I was going to ask you questions.
Yeah. So, it was a very candid interview that we had. And I really thought it would be, me asking questions and you giving me insights. But it was really, really fun, and I loved, like, I was listening very intently to every word you said, and it made me thinking a lot of times. And you got me answering questions, so I started actually thinking, like, it always works that way, when you ask questions and you have somebody else to get thinking on what you actually want to convey to them. And I think that was the best part about you having answering those questions, that you you question the somebody who is listening to you, and they might give you the answers, like, you just carve away to the answers. So I loved that about this interview. And summarizing on the points that you told, so firstly, yes, the skills that the people should have, soft skills, communication skills that you were talking about, which people are lacking today, that is something which should be developed a lot. And can do attitude is the first thing that should be coming in, that should be embedded into people who really want to go ahead in their life. And yeah, and basically everything is just a basic thinking and not rocket science at all, common sense. And yeah, well, that actually works, just having thinking on what does that mean, or why am I doing this, and that answers a whole lot of questions. So yeah.
Well, it does. And the main thing there is, when we've closed this interview, I regularly get asked to come and give an inspirational talk. And I say, but I just apply a spark. You apply the inspiration. Because it's your life, it's not mine. And everyone that's listening here, whenever they're listening, whether it's later today, tomorrow, in a year's time, in 10 years' time, what we all need to recognise is we gather our inspiration from lots and lots of different places. One of the places we all gather inspiration from is when someone smiles. There you go. You smiled.
Yeah.
Now, we're not taught how to smile. Babies smile. Going back to babies crawling and walking, And the psychologists know that babies smile for two reasons. They've seen something that makes them happy, or they've done something that makes them happy. Okay? And interestingly enough, and parents will say this all the time, oh, must have pooped his pants. He's really happy now. And it's hilarious. But you've got to have some fun with this, okay? And babies can't talk, but they can smile. Yeah. So number one here is, my wife has always said for many years, let the outside influence the in. There is a knock-on context here. Coronavirus is the outside. And if you allow all the negative part of coronavirus on the inside, you cannot help but those four things that I told you. Your feelings will become sympathetic, and then that will feel into depression. And guess what? All of the other three will fall back. Yes. So this is where you need to be the feeling part, the resilient and competence. You don't need to be emotionally intelligent, okay? Whenever I do a speaking tour and someone says, that's emotional intelligence, and I say, correct. Can you please tell me what emotion is intelligent? And there's stony silence. And guess why there's stony silence? Because there isn't one. There isn't an emotion that's intelligent. Because it's an emotion. It's a reaction. So if you're emotionally competent and resilient, okay, resilient is a long word, 3 syllables, No, 4 syllables. Resilient. Okay. You need to really understand what that means. And the thing is, everything we said here is common sense. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Now, that has personal meaning to me. Hopefully it's got personal meaning to anyone that's listening. From contact to contract is 1 letter. That letter is R, and it stands for relationship. That's a huge, huge topic. But we're human. We build relationships. We build bridges. We also burn them pretty quickly too. You know, so, and that should be your choice. If you're resilient, you're emotionally resilient and competent, you will know which bridges to burn, because there are some you need to burn. You know, I don't believe what you're saying. You are a heretic, etc., etc., etc. It's against all your principles. You're really strong in your integrity, and you're a high principle individual. There's some of your noise. Turn it off. Technology allows you to turn it off. Listen to the experts, but you are the expert on you. But only if you've got that can-do attitude. And there's lots of things out there that can help you, but make sure you know why you're doing it, because that's the key. I highly recommend people go and Google Simon Sinek. I can send you the links later, because it just makes sense. It's not what he's saying or what we're saying isn't necessarily easy to do, because you've never had to think about yourself. But here's an opportunity, because it's your CV that matters. Whether you're going to be an employee, get the best job you can, or whether you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you go to an investor, it's your CV that the investor's looking at. Why are you doing this? Who are you? What are you going to do? And it will come down to, I believe in you, I trust you, I will invest in you. It's a negotiation, which is another one of those core skills that we develop in Your Passport to Grow. So we've even designed the program for you. There is something called Neville's Corner on there, where I go and interview international specialists in, if you're recruiting, who do you recruit? And do you know what? They're saying exactly the same thing. If I have 10 graduates in front of me and they've all got the same qualifications, I look into their eyes. Who's got the most passion? Who's got the right attitude? Who really wants to do this? Who knows about me and what we do and why they want to join us? I can guarantee there'll only be 1 in 10 that have got that approach, because the rest will say, I just want a job. And yet what do graduates do? For 3 years, 4 years at university, they are brilliant at research. All of your years at university, you had to research. Your lecturer said something. They gave you a long list of books. Did you stop at reading those books? If you were a really good student, no, you didn't. You'd look elsewhere. You'd Google it. So you're really good at research. And yet when you go for an interview, you know nothing about the company. You know nothing about the person that's interviewing you. You know nothing about where the company's been, the difficulties it's had, and where it's going. And this is just as an employer. And on the other side, think of an entrepreneur. You need to think about who you're pitching to. What's their motivation? Why are they doing this? Why? Ask that question why. Don't be afraid of it. As soon as you get to the why, you'll get the answer. And again, this is all common sense. And I wish I had all this in my career, but I didn't have a process that I could fall back on that worked every time. So I made some big mistakes. Trust me, mega mistakes. if I'd have had the process, it would have got me to think smarter. And all I will say is that's the process. Right attitude, be in a can-do state, thinking you can, even if you don't know how. And all of a sudden, the dominoes will fall in the right direction. And you'll get the result that you deserve to get. Does all this make sense?
Yes, definitely.
And people have been saying this for years, but no one's really listening. So let's hope that this has all fallen on some fertile ears here. You know, where we've planted a seed of inspiration for people to just take one of these things and run with it, get after it, you know, and come back to you and ask questions, come back to me and ask questions. Because the only way that we're globally going to improve is if one person does something differently. And are you that person? Is anyone listening that person? I hope so. Otherwise, we're wasting our time.